Hey there, and welcome back to Parental Blueprint. Today we are having a conversation that every parent needs to hear. Why trying to be liked by your child is actually weakening them, not making them feel loved, being harsh. This is not about being harsh. This is strict parenting. This is about understanding what your child actually needs from you, which is something far more powerful than your approval. Today's conversation is going to change everything. Stay with us. This conversation starts right now.
If you are a parent or an aunt, an uncle, or really a caregiver of any kind, you are probably deeply, bone-achingly exhausted.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Just trying to keep the kids in your life happy. I mean, I am talking about the daily psychological marathon.
It really is a marathon.
It is. Managing the moods, negotiating those little peace treaties over, like, what kind of snacks are acceptable today.
Dodging the public meltdowns.
Yes. Dodging the dreaded public meltdown in the grocery store aisle. But what if the very thing you are doing to make them happy is actually wiring their brains for anxiety?
That is the heavy reality we're looking at. It's a profound mental load for caregivers. You are constantly anticipating these emotional weather patterns, trying to steer the ship away from the storm. But as the research shows, constantly dodging that storm actually comes at a massive developmental cost to the child.
Which is exactly what we're getting into today. Our deep dive today is looking at a massive stack of developmental psychology research. And honestly, it completely flips the modern parenting script on its head.
It really does. It's totally counterintuitive to how a lot of us operate.
It is. We are pulling from decades of insight here. So starting with Diana Baumrein's foundational work on parenting styles, all the way up to the latest findings. We've got Jean Twenge, Jonathan Haidt, and the legendary Stanford University marshmallow experiments.
Such classic studies.
Right. So the mission for us today is to uncover why prioritizing being liked by a child might actually be weakening their emotional resilience.
And crucially, how you can become the calm leader their brains fundamentally crave.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where did this culture of, friendship parenting even come from?
Well, it originates from a very loving, well-meaning place. I mean, many modern parents operate under this secret, almost paralyzed fear.
Fear of what, exactly? Not being the fun parent.
Partially, but it's deeper. They worry that their child might not like them or that they are somehow traumatizing their child by causing them distress.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. So to ensure a loving bond, they shift toward this egalitarian, friendship-based model. They avoid conflict.
They try to never use the word no.
Exactly. They prioritize keeping the peace in the living room at all costs. It's like they're treating the child almost like a peer whose consent is needed for daily operations.
Which, intuitively, that feels like you are just being a gentle, modern caregiver.
It feels right in the moment.
Yeah, you want your house to be a joyful place where kids feel completely heard and respected.
What's fascinating here is the total mismatch between what we think is nurturing and what the child's developing brain actually registers as safe.
Wait, so the brain doesn't see that as safe?
Not at all. Children are neurologically wired to scan their environment for a competent leader. They need to know that a calm, confident adult is clearly in charge. So when you abandon your authority just to be their buddy, you inadvertently trigger subconscious anxiety in the child.
Because their little brains are looking around thinking, wait, if my mom is just my friend who is actually in charge of keeping us safe from the tigers.
That is the exact mechanism at play. Yes. Psychologist Diana Baumrein documented this beautifully.
This is back in the 60s, right?
Starting in the 1960s, yeah. She looked at how parents balance demandingness, meaning setting rules and boundaries, with responsiveness, which is, the warmth and emotional support.
And she categorized them into different styles.
Right. She drew a hard line between these styles and found that authoritative parenting produces the best outcomes. That's parenting, which is highly warm, but also highly firm.
Producing confident kids.
Exactly. The most confident, socially competent, and emotionally regulated kids come from that authoritative style.
We should probably clarify that because those words sound so similar. Authoritative is vastly different from authoritarian.
Oh, night and day. Authoritarian parenting is cold, harsh, and demands blind obedience.
The whole because I said so routine.
Right. The old school model, which really just relies on fear. But authoritative parenting is deeply connected and responsive.
So you still have that warmth.
You maintain a very warm emotional bond, but you set clear, unwavering boundaries. You are a leader, not a dictator, but definitely not a peer.
I always think of it like being on a commercial flight. Imagine the pilot comes out of the cockpit walks down the aisle, and says, "Hey guys, I want us all to be friends.
Oh boy.
How do you think we should fly the plane today? Does 30,000 feet feel good to everybody, or should we go lower?"
The passengers would be panicking.
They would lose their minds. On paper, it sounds incredibly democratic and respectful. But as a passenger, you would be absolutely terrified.
Because you know they don't have control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You do not want a pilot who's your buddy taking a poll on how to navigate a storm. You want a pilot who knows exactly how to fly the plane.
Someone who tells you when to buckle up because turbulence is coming.
Right, who confidently handles the controls.
Yeah.
When we act like the pilot asking the toddlers for directions, it creates pure panic in the cabin.
That is a perfect analogy, and that leadership fundamentally requires setting those boundaries, which naturally forces us to examine what happens neurologically when a boundary is set.
Right, like when they get mad.
Specifically, yeah, when a child is denied what they desperately want in the moment.
But wait, let me push back on that a bit. When you say no to a toddler who wants, like, a popsicle for breakfast, or a teenager who wants to stay out past curfew.
Oh, the curfew battles?
It usually causes a massive tantrum. It triggers a screaming match. In that moment, standing in your kitchen while someone loses their mind at you, it feels like a total parenting failure.
It feels incredibly chaotic.
Yeah, how on earth is a meltdown building resilience? It just feels like everything is falling apart.
I know, it feels that way. But that tantrum, that intense frustration, is actually the resistance training for their brain.
Resistance training.
Yes. Every single time a child hears no and survives the subsequent frustration, meaning they experience the disappointment, the world doesn't end, and you remain a calm, loving presence. They are actively building neural pathways.
So we're actually talking about the prefrontal cortex here.
Exactly.
Forcing them to use that logic center instead of just reacting from the emotional sort of lizard brain centers.
You are forcing that prefrontal cortex to practice self-regulation, impulse control, and emotional recovery. Resilience is not built by shielding a child from all discomfort.
Which is what we try to do when we just give them a popsicle.
Right. Resilience is built through the repetitive experience of manageable difficulty. The no is the weight they have to lift to build the muscle of emotional regulation.
The data backing this up is undeniable too, especially when we look at Stanford University's famous marshmallow research.
Walter Mischel's study, it's fascinating.
Yeah, so they took 4-year-olds, put them in a room with a single marshmallow, and told them, you can eat this now, or if you wait 15 minutes while I step out, you can have 2.
And if you watch the footage of those experiments, have you seen the tapes?
Oh, they're hilarious, but also hard to watch.
The physical agony of those children trying to wait is palpable.
They are like squirming in their chairs, covering their eyes.
Singing to themselves, doing anything they can to handle the acute discomfort of wanting something and not getting it immediately.
And the follow-up studies on those kids over the next few decades were staggering.
30 years later, the data is so clear.
The children who could tolerate that delayed gratification, who could sit with the frustration, has significantly better outcomes across the board as adults.
In almost every metric.
Yeah. They had higher SAT scores, better stress management, healthier physical metrics like BMI, and much more stable social relationships.
The ability to delay gratification is arguably the single most important psychological skill for a successful adult life.
That is a huge statement.
But it's true. When you rarely say no to keep the peace, you are raising a child with an inability to tolerate frustration.
Because they've never had to practice.
Exactly. The desire to prevent a 10-minute tantrum today guarantees they will be completely derailed by the normal, inevitable frustrations of real life tomorrow.
Which leads us into a whole other trap. Because this avoidance of conflict doesn't usually stop at just saying yes.
No, it rarely does.
It evolves into fixing every single obstacle in the child's path before they even reach it.
Right. It's the shift from helicopter parenting, where you just sort of hover and monitor, to snowplow parenting.
Snowplow parenting. I love that term.
Where you actively clear the road of all debris so the child never experiences a single bump.
And while the intention is clearly to protect the child from pain, the psychological message they receive is actually devastating.
It really is.
When you rush to fix a forgotten lunch, or step in to mediate every single playground dispute, or do their difficult homework for them, you are unknowingly broadcasting that the world is far too dangerous for them to handle.
You are communicating a deep lack of faith in their competence.
Wow. Yeah, they read it as mom doesn't think I can do this.
Exactly. And this creates a psychological phenomenon known as learned helplessness.
Learned helplessness.
These are children who, when faced with a difficult puzzle or a socially awkward situation, just give up immediately.
They don't even try.
Right, because they haven't built the internal locus of control that tells them, I am capable of figuring this out. Instead, they become heavily dependent on external forces to regulate their emotions and solve their problems.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is where the research from Jean Twenge in her iGen studies becomes incredibly urgent.
Yes, Twenge's work, and Jonathan Haidt's The Anxious Generation as well.
Right. They are looking at the skyrocketing rates of adolescent anxiety, depression, and social difficulty, and they are tracing it back to these overly permissive, constantly rescuing environments.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the mechanism there is fascinating. When you raise a child who relies entirely on external validation to feel safe, because parents have always managed their environment to keep them perfectly happy, what happens when they hit middle school?
Oh, middle school. The Wild West.
They are suddenly thrust into a chaotic social ecosystem, compounded, of course, by the hyper-judgmental world of smartphones and social media.
And they don't have the internal tools to self-soothe when they experience their first real social rejection, like getting left out of a group chat.
They completely lack the psychological shock absorbers.
That's a great way to put it.
Because they've been implicitly trained that feeling bad is an emergency that an adult needs to fix. They panic when they feel bad, and no one is there to fix it.
And I imagine this makes them highly susceptible to peer pressure, too.
Oh, incredibly susceptible. They have internalized the idea that being liked and avoiding conflict is the ultimate goal, so they will abandon their own values just to secure the approval of their peers.
It is the ultimate irony of modern parenting. By trying so hard to be their friend and ensure they never feel a moment of distress, we leave them completely defenseless against the real world.
And the real world guarantees they will face distress.
Right. So the most loving, protective thing you can do is raise a kid who does not need constant external approval to feel secure.
Which brings us to the alternative. If friendship parenting creates anxiety and authoritarian parenting creates fear, we need to look at what healthy authority actually looks like in practice.
The middle ground.
Child development experts refer to this sweet spot as structured warmth.
Structured warmth. Okay, so how do we actually do this without turning into a drill sergeant? We need a framework that balances the love with the leadership.
Structured warmth operates on a few core principles. 4 pillars, really. The foundation is establishing consistent boundaries that are explained calmly and enforced without anger, but with absolute firmness.
So no yelling, just stating the rule.
Right. The predictability is what creates the safety. If a boundary shifts depending on how tired you are, the child feels anxious because the rules of their universe are unstable.
That makes total sense. Another massive piece of this is allowing natural consequences to play out, rather than stepping in to absorb the blow for them.
Exactly. Let's take a classic morning rush scenario. Your middle schooler consistently leaves their completed homework on the kitchen counter.
Oh, I've been there.
The approval-seeking snowplow parent sees it, panics about the child's grade or their own reputation with the teacher, and drives it to the school.
Which teaches them nothing.
Right. The parent practicing structured warmth sees the homework, leaves it on the counter, and lets the child go to school to face the teacher.
Because the discomfort of having to explain themselves to the teacher, and maybe getting a 0 for the day, teaches executive function and responsibility infinitely better than a parent nagging them for the 100th time.
The discomfort is the teacher, but you also have to pair that consequence with deep emotional validation.
Okay, so you don't just say, told you so.
No, you weren't cold about it. You can completely validate the child's frustration without validating the behavior or removing the consequence.
Think of it like being a lighthouse in a storm.
Okay, I like that.
The waves are crashing violently all around you, and those waves are the child's massive, overwhelming emotions. The anger, the crying, the screaming about how unfair you are.
It's a storm, for sure.
Yeah. But the lighthouse acknowledges the storm. It shines a powerful light on the waves, so they are seen and validated. But the lighthouse does not move its position.
It stays anchored.
Right. The boundary stays exactly where it is, anchored in the rock.
That visual is perfect. You might sit with them and say, I see how angry you are that we have to leave the park right now. It is genuinely hard to stop playing when you're having so much fun.
So you give them the words for it.
You give them the emotional vocabulary. You shine the light on the feeling. But, and this is the critical part, You still pack up and leave the park.
You don't cave.
You teach emotional literacy alongside boundary respect. You never say, okay, stop crying. You can have 5 more minutes.
Because then the lighthouse just floated away.
Exactly.
Okay, so the lighthouse stays put. We have the theory, we understand the neurological necessity of the prefrontal cortex workout, and we see the dangers of learned helplessness. But the sources we are looking at outline a very specific, actionable blueprint for shifting this dynamic in your own home starting today. Let's get into the practical steps.
Putting this into practice starts with something incredibly liberating, honestly. Step 1. You have to stop apologizing for necessary boundaries.
Oh, this is so common.
There is a pervasive habit among modern caregivers to say, I'm so sorry, but we have to turn the iPad off now.
Yeah, and when you apologize for a boundary, you are subtly communicating to the child that you are doing something wrong by setting it.
Exactly. It implies the boundary is an injury to them.
You don't need to apologize for limiting screen time or enforcing a reasonable bedtime or saying no to a second bowl of ice cream. You state the boundary calmly, with warmth, and move on.
Which naturally leads to step 2, and this is the hardest part for most caregivers. You have to let your child be upset without trying to talk them out of it or fix it.
Just to the discomfort.
Going back to the lighthouse, you sit with them in that frustration. You remain a warmly present, safe harbor, but you do not remove the boundary just to make the tears stop. You tolerate their distress so they can learn to tolerate their own.
And for step 3, you have to hold that line consistently.
Consistency is everything.
Because an inconsistent boundary is basically a direct invitation for a child to aggressively limit test. If you say no 3 times, but on the 4th time, you give in because you just want 10 minutes of quiet.
We've all been there.
Right, but you have effectively trained your child to act like they are at a casino.
You've turned whining into a slot machine.
Exactly.
They learn that no doesn't actually mean no. It just means pull the lever again, scream a little louder, and eventually it might pay out. Consistency is what extinguishes the tantrum over the long term, even if it makes it worse in the short term.
So step 4. To maintain that emotional bond through all of this, you have to actively separate your love from their compliance.
Yes, a vital distinction.
You have to make sure they know they're cherished completely, even when they are acting out and not getting their way.
You articulate it explicitly. Remind them often that your love for them is unconditional and not tied to their behavior. But simultaneously, make sure they understand that being loved doesn't exempt them from the rules of the house or society.
The deepest form of love includes boundaries.
Beautifully said.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the final piece of this puzzle, step 5, isn't actually about how you manage the kids. It is entirely about how you manage yourself.
Right.
The ultimate step in structured warmth is modeling self-respect.
Children are astute observers. They learn what a healthy adult looks like by watching how you navigate your own life. When you respect your own needs, guard your own time, and uphold your own boundaries, you are giving them a template for adulthood.
Which makes total sense.
Yeah.
If you are constantly martyring yourself, skipping your own meals, never taking a moment for your own hobbies, and letting everyone in your life walk all over you, your kids are internalizing that script.
They absolutely are.
They are learning that being a loving, good person means having 0 boundaries and running yourself into the ground. You have to honor your own humanity so they see what it looks like to be a whole, self-respecting person.
Taking all of this psychological data together, it forces a massive paradigm shift. The goal of raising or guiding children was never to be liked by them every single day.
It was never about being the cool friend.
No, the goal is to be trusted by them completely.
A child who respects you, who feels secure in the parameters you've set, and who knows exactly where they stand with you, actually develops a much deeper, more authentic affection for you than a child who is just handed everything they want.
It's paradoxical, but true.
Yeah, the adults that children remember most fondly when they grow up are rarely the ones who cave to every demand. They are the ones who held the line with love, who stayed calm during the emotional storms, and who showed up consistently, even when it resulted in slammed doors and temporary anger.
That unwavering safety is what allows a child to venture out into a chaotic world, take meaningful risks, experience failure, and actually bounce back. Structured warmth builds the capable, resilient adults that society desperately needs.
It builds humans who do not crumble the moment the universe tells them no.
This raises an important question, though.
Oh.
If we zoom out from childhood development for a moment and look at the adults listening to this dynamic doesn't suddenly vanish when we turn 18.
Oh, man. This is the part that's going to hit really close to home for a lot of people.
I would ask you, the listener, to run an audit on your own adult relationships today. How does your own comfort, or perhaps your extreme panic around setting boundaries right now, reflect the structured warmth you did or didn't receive growing up?
We end up repeating the patterns. We really do.
We do. And take that reflection a step further. Is your own inner unhealed fear of not being liked secretly driving how you manage your coworkers, your friends, and your romantic partners today?
Oh, wow.
Are you abandoning your own authority and your own needs in the boardroom or in your marriage just to keep the peace? Operating exactly like a permissive parent trying to appease a toddler.
That is a harsh but necessary mirror. Are you being the confident pilot of your own life, or are you still walking down the aisle begging the passengers to tell you where to fly, just so they won't be mad at you?
Exactly.
Something to chew on the next time you feel that desperate urge to just say yes to avoid a storm. Be the lighthouse. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.